Capital projects. Under capital projects, we have federal projects, federal funded projects, and we have projects that we do that are not funded by the federal government. But basically, the total appropriations are about $3.1 million for the year 2019-20. And the total revenue for those is about 1.8. And I'll show you in the next slide what projects we're talking about and how it gets distributed. So at Camarillo Airport, the projects that are grant funded is we're going to be rehabbing taxiway hotel. We built this taxiway about 10 years ago, and it's about time to maintain it. So that's what we will be doing. What we will also be doing is we're doing the environmental at the national level and also the CEQA reviews for the runway reconstruction, which is scheduled to happen right now in fiscal years 2023-24. The projects that are non-grant funded, that means that we use our reserves, are the Department of Airports parking lot. We're redoing it. It's time to do it. What we're also doing is Post Avenue and North. We're rehabilitating the parking lot south of the restaurant parking lot. That's basically the best way to do it, to say it. We'll also be upgrading our airfield security camera system. Our cameras were installed in the early 2000s, and they don't really serve. The pixels don't really are not really up to speed with what we have going on right now in technology. So we'll be looking to upgrade them. We're looking to replace the beacon, which it's at its end of its useful life. We have scheduled a solar power development. We are yet to develop what exactly that will be, but we're working on a project, and we're also doing surveys for roofs, HVAC, and something that has our projects team excited is a facility records management system. Basically, something that kind of like what Public Works would use. All of our plan sheets are hanging from hanging files, and it's about to bring them to the 21st century so that easily searchable. And when you click on a building, for example, if you're on a computer, you can pull up the diagram, all of the diagrams that are associated with that building or improvement. And I think that's going to be great. For Oxnard Airport, the projects that will be grant funded is the final design and for the 2020 and 21 runway reconstruction. So we believe, and for the information that we have, like we mentioned earlier, it will be a reconstruction. But we're still working on the design, and that's something that I think that we can provide to you so you're aware of what's going on there. We're doing a drainage study we're doing an environmental for NEPA and CEQA for a drainage study of the safety areas at Oxnard, because even though right now safety areas are the areas that are on the runway, and when we do our runway project, they may need to be modified a little so that the water runs properly. And we're doing the final design for the taxiway connector also and the runway safety area reconstruction. So some of the entrance taxiways are going to be changing to meet FAA current regulations right now, and that's what we have the schedule for. The non-grant projects, we have the terminal parking lot rehabilitation. We will be doing a slurry seal. It hasn't happened for a long time, and we'll also be doing surveys for the roofs at Oxnard and a facility HVAC survey also at Oxnard.
Good point.
So great projects all in all. At Camarillo, we have the roads and lighting. We basically have many property owners at Camarillo, and the Department of Airports acts as the HOA. So we collect revenue from the property owners, and we manage the projects for them. Just to give you an example, Airport Way, you would think that it's owned by the airport, but that's not the case. There's a few property owners that own it, and that project is scheduled to be taking place this year to rehab it. So the total appropriations for that are about $181,000. And the total revenue about $92,000. So like I mentioned before, that's Airport Way. That's a project that we're looking to do. And we're also looking to do West Durley Avenue. We're looking to rehab them. And the total cost is about $78,000. Okay, so that's basically my budget presentation. And you have the recommendation in front of you?
We've got a question over here.
Yes, sir.
Barilla.
You had the capital improvement projects, and when I should have asked at the very beginning, you had the elevator, the statement about the elevator, and there's a building that we don't rent because it doesn't have an elevator service.
Yes.
It's your mic, please.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'm-
No, I mean, you just get,
Is,
To the mic. Yeah.
okay. The building that, where we have where we don't have an elevator, apparently we're not renting that building because we don't have an elevator. What's the story on that? How many stories is that building?
It's 2 stories only, but what happens is the second story, there's about 17,000 square feet that are being unoccupied because of that. So it doesn't have any ADA access, and we're looking to install an elevator. We will be doing an assessment to see if we can do it. So we are budgeting about $100,000 to do the assessment. So we're not going to spend the whole $100,000, we believe. But my understanding is that to install an elevator is much more than that. So we want to do the initial study to see if the building is actually going to be able to support it.
Are any other buildings that the airport authority owns in problems with not being ADA compliant with an elevator to a 2-story?
That is the only one. Our administration building, we have a lift, but it is a lift, and for now it does its job. But eventually we would like to upgrade it potentially to an elevator, but that would be later on.
And the elevator that you're thinking about putting, is it a passenger or is it a freight elevator?
It would be a passenger, not a freight elevator.
Thank you.
is the elevator in the airport, Department of Airports working again? The lift?
It is.
Okay, fine.
Any other questions from Oxnard? No? No? Okay.
I-
Motion to approve for Camarillo.
I have one speaker card that I'd like to have before we do the motion, please. So could I have Mark Sullivan, please?
Good evening. My name is Mark Sullivan. I'm currently a renter of 2 county hangars at Camarillo. Over the course of the past 35 years, I've had hangars, county rental hangars, T hangars, at both Camarillo and at Oxnard. I'm also a partner in a startup avionics business, an autopilot business that's, it's actually doing quite well. We've been at all the major magazines have been promoting us. We're over in Oxnard. I have some pretty strong feelings about things that could happen at Oxnard. It's very, very difficult to start up an aviation business at either of these airports. And I think both of them were missing a huge opportunity because, for example, this year everybody and his brother has to install ADS-B, this new system in their airplanes. Every one that we sell generates about $400 to $500 in sales tax for the city of Oxnard. And I think that there's a revenue issue way beyond selling gasoline and the like. And if you look at these 2 airports, they're very underserved for services for aviation businesses. Hangar 3, it's old, but I tell you, we've looked at it, and there's more bureaucratic impediments to using it. We think it would be readily usable. That's not the reason I came to speak tonight. I heard these, and I had to chip in on them because I think that some creative thought could be put to making better use of the Oxnard Airport, particularly, and also the Camarillo Airport. Now, the Camarillo Airport, we're currently getting ready for a mini crisis in a way. One of our major service providers is being forced out of his hangar. That's Rick at Camarillo Aviation. He has nowhere to go. If he goes away, a very important service provider for the lower-end general aviation aircraft is going to disappear. Why? Because there are very few facilities in the airport that are currently, and I can't see a good reason for it, restricted for any kind of commercial use. Much more arbitrary and more prohibitory than basically any other airport I know of. The main reason I came to speak tonight is I'm very concerned about the finances of the airport. I'm concerned about the Northeast Hangar project. I'm looking at the numbers. We're hearing $9 million with a contract for Toro Construction, and about $3 to $4 million has been spent on environmental. I do the square footage of these hangars, and any way I cut it, I come up with these hangars costing approximately $230,000 to $250,000. The fee schedule says 50 cents a square foot for new hangars. $5.75 a month, that's cost recovery in 38 years per my math. So what I'm afraid of is I'm afraid that if the county doesn't make a ton of dough off the new RKR hangar development, that all of the little guys at the hangar are going to be, at the airport, are going to be squeezed to subsidize the hangar project. I think it's one more example that when it comes to building things of that nature, the private sector always does it cheaper than the government. And I think the Northeast Hangar Project is going to be an expensive white elephant that we're all going to be bearing for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the staff's heard that, yeah.
I can make a comment if you wish.
Yes.
Go ahead.
In regards to the Northeast Hangar development, the FAA is giving us about $4 million for the project. The airport is providing over $7 million for the project. So it is very unusual for the FAA to fund the ramp and infrastructure for a hangar project such as this. It is, I can tell you that is Mr. McNamee's legacy, and he pushed the FAA in order to provide such funding for the project. But something that is not being mentioned is the fact that we are building 41 hangars right now, but we're looking to build hangars in phases. We're looking to build about 120 hangars. And the infrastructure, most of the infrastructure that is provided right now will serve the 3 phases. So what we have done is we've looked at the financial investment that we're doing, that the airport is doing, and we've allocated as to how much each phase would come up. And based on the numbers that we produced, it would take us about 16 years to recoup our money back on the first phase at a rate of about 50 cents per square foot per month. Keep in mind that the hangars are ours. If we get a private investor to come in, the hangars are not ours. Yes, we do collect land rent, but it will take us a lot longer to get those hangars back when reversion kicks in.
To recapture.
So we've studied this item front and back, and we believe that it's something that can move forward.
So, question? We have a question here.
No, I just want to make a general comment. I guess we'll have time to do that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So for 6A, do I have a motion for approval?
Yes, motion approved.
Second.
No, we'll do it right now.
And that's for the Camarillo side. Do you want us to vote first?
Yeah, vote on that,
Okay.
huh?
Is there, I didn't know if there was going to be some discussion.
There's going to be
That was-
discussion on the Oxnard side,
So
right?
for Camarillo, any discussion?
No.
No, or in general? Okay.
Okay, for Camarillo, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
For Oxnard?
Well, Oxnard, on the budget.
I'll second.
We got a first, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So, okay, so one opposed? Okay, one opposition, and so we got four. So it's 4-1, so that's approved. Thank you.
Item 6B is approval of the Department of Airports fiscal rent and fee schedule, effective 1 July 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this year, well, like every year, we are bringing to you the rent and fee schedule that will go in front of the Board of Supervisors, and there will be a hearing.
Well,
I'm sorry?
go ahead. Do you want to make a comment?
I didn't mean to interrupt things, although I've been advised this is the appropriate time to state the reason for my no, so I'd like to do so briefly. It's pretty apparent I'm not happy with the representation that the runway is now going to be replaced. It's never been the case before. Also, it appears it was in consternation over the cost of the hangars, which happens every time, but it's always rationalized by, well, the feds are making a 50, 80, 100% contribution, and they do, but that doesn't it doesn't give you the opportunity. What happens is they come up and it goes, well, you can't beat the deal, so let's go for it. So we go for it. And then when it's all said and done, then all of a sudden they're way too expensive, and we wish we had another chance to look at it. So I think I just can't believe that the engineers were told to go ahead with it. I don't know how many millions of dollars it's cost, if any, but I'm just consternated by the fact that that's been approved. And I think there's millions of ways to rebuild a runway. I mean, and I know it for a fact. So, and I guess what troubles me the most is we never got a chance to look at it. We didn't vote on it. Nobody said, well, what do you think? Toss some sand in the air? Nothing. It's just tonight. It's said, and you said it yourself, Jorge. And I know you're just doing your job. God bless you. But, it's going to be, now it's done, so it's $5 million down the road. I just don't see it that way, so I'm going to vote no.
So I know that we voted, for this, and your concerns are well taken. So in other words, what you're saying that you didn't have enough opportunity to look at that project in detail.
Exactly.
So can we, I'm not sure if we can or not, approve the budget subject to that? Bring it back?
It brings to, Mr. Chairman, it brings to mind, why are we here? If things just kind of float along and then whip right by you because everybody kind of think some engineers think it's the way to go, guess what? We pay them a lot of money to do those projects. They want to see it go forward, typically.
City Attorney, would a vote for reconsideration be in order?
We don't have an attorney here
So
tonight.
we're done. But I think in the future, unfortunately, I think I know what you're saying, that we need to have more information and specific projects, especially a big project like this. But unfortunately, we've already voted, but you're
Well, and one other thing, I'm sorry to beleaguer this, but this isn't just a monetary issue, although it's $5 million is a ton of money. We're shut, how long, what's the projected shutdown of the runway? Jorge, please.
Right now, we're trying to make it as short as possible, but it could be from a month to 3 months.
A month to 3 months. The last numbers I heard were far greater. But anyway, say it's 3 months. That's just 3 months of losing all those airplanes, access to them. And I know there's other alternatives to that too, but it's inconceivable to me. It's just.
Can we expedite?
So again, we will be looking at alternatives. When we tried to look at Camarillo Airport, we looked at the abandoned runway. We looked at taxiway hotel, for example. I mean, that's years out. The problem that we have with Oxnard is that there's really no space, and there's no separation. Even if we try to convert, for example, taxiway Foxtrot into a runway, Again, I don't know how feasible it will be. I know that, for example, and I'm sorry to mention this, Mr. Turner, but Mr. Turner has been really clear with us that he wants the public to get involved as soon as we can during the project, and that's what we will attempt to do. I mean, but it was news for us that it would be a reconstruction, and in talking to our contractor, to our engineer, that's what it calls for. I think you want to say something.
I just want to clarify also, if we were to do a full reconstruction, I've not seen a reconstruction happen in a month on a runway. So the month to 3 month probably was for the original project, if I'm guessing right. I think a full recon can be done in a month. So
Okay.
I'd be hesitant to say that and you take that home and then I would be hesitant to say that a full recon could be done in a month based on my experience, but if you've been told that, that's one thing. But
No. Well, I'm glad you're here to clarify that.
the previous project, I think, was probably a month to 3 months. Probably that would have made sense for a rehabilitation instead of a reconstruction. Reconstruction is going to be taking up some of the old base if you do that, if that project goes forward that way. And that would typically take a little longer. So I just wanted to make sure that month was probably for the other project if it was happening. I would guess it'd be more like 3 months minimum.
Absolutely, and perhaps most of us should be looking at the preliminary specifications for a reconstruction, not just to pull out a little bit of base, put a patty cake it back down and put some revolutionary stuff on top of that. We're talking the whole dog and pony show, over X deeper, which is, they were landing what, B-24s on that thing back then?
And just to maybe help out a little bit, maybe to give Jorge a break here, Mr. Calhoun, I've been briefed all week on things. I mean, I've been drinking out of a fire hose, but one of the things I did get briefed on by Ms. Powers on projects when we were talking about various projects is I think the full intent was to do the rehabilitation by everyone. Matter of fact, I think FAA was actually pushing hard for that. My understanding from my very short debrief, so I need to dive into this to give you a better presentation at a later meeting, but my understanding from my very short debrief from Ms. Powers this week is that then the FAA or someone ordered more bore samples, and there was about 40 more borings done, and when the borings came back, they found the subsoil to be substandard and had to have some treatment done to be able to make a project last for another 25 or 30 years. So it sounded like there was some moisture in the soil content that was not satisfactory for putting new pavement on top of, and that is what is prompting the potential reconstruction, as I understood it from my brief this week.
Almost like a mandate from the FAA then.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to fund a project that doesn't last. So, I mean, spending, $3 or $4 million on a project that doesn't last the adequate number of years that it should last, nobody wants to do that, not the FAA, not us, not anybody else. But
And the boring then said that we have some concerns.
the borings came back where the soil underneath was going to have to be lime treated or replaced. And the lime treatment, as I understand it, is actually saving us millions of dollars from having to replace maybe even more soil that would have had to be excavated. But that's, again, a very short debrief that I got this week, so I need to do more homework and come back at you with it.
No, it sounds like you and the boys had a great time, except that none of us were included in that, and particularly the people at Oxnard.
And I think in the future, we need to have that. I think your concerns are well taken.
Right.
Why are we here?
And so just to repeat, this is an approval of a budget.
Yeah.
A budget is not an actual. I
Right.
want to make sure that is made sure from all staff. It's a budget.
It's a roadmap.
So you've heard today from our board that we don't like to be caught surprised. We want to be a partner in this project, and so we want to be kept abroad as to changes and so forth. So when we have a plan of a project and the plan switches, we don't want to hear it from hangar owners that said, hey, did you hear what happened on the airport? We want to actually hear it from staff and be updated and have transparency.
and-
So if we can bring that up, that'll be great.
If you don't mind, what I like to say is, so this project with the reconstruction, it's as of recent that we have this information that it will be a full reconstruction. So this is the first time that we have actually an opportunity to talk to everybody here about the project. Well, we did talk about it also during the budget presentation, but it is as of recent. I mean, it's not that we were just trying to hide information from you, and I'm sorry that you feel that way, but we'll try to be more proactive.
And Rubio, a budget is a roadmap, and we can amend, we can work with it, and I think it's important that, that it's been approved, and Walt, really, your comments are well taken.
Mr. Chair, what Kelly just said is exactly what happens to every major project. We can always massage the budget around to where it looks pretty good and everybody goes for it. But guess what? When it's built, nobody really brings it up because whose fault is it? Ours, for not being more diligent when you need to be.
Agree. Yeah. But look, the budget
Thank you,
has.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The budget has been approved, so thank you for those comments, and I think well taken.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
No, we're not ready. We're still working on B. Yes. B.
Yes. Okay. So the proposed rent and fee schedule, we bring this item to you every year. We have an increase to hangars and tie downs. Per policy, what we do is every 5 years we do a cost recovery analysis, and we compare the costs of the airport and the rents with the airport with any neighboring airport as well. So that happened about the year 2014, I believe. And then what happens is that's in the first year. The second year, the tenants don't typically see an increase. On the third year, what they would see is 2 years of CPI increase, and that happened 2 years ago in 2017. And the increase, I believe, in CPI was about 4.04%. And now, well, in the following year, they didn't see an increase. So last year, they did not see an increase. And this year, per policy, they're seeing an increase of CPI of 6.971%. What that means is the private hangars rate will go from 13 cents to 0.139 cents. 39 cents actually. County hangars, they go from 34 cents to 36.4 cents. We are including the rate for the new county hangars at 50 cents per square foot per month. The tie downs are going up from 95 to 102, and we have some special tie downs that we typically reserve for larger aircraft or for tenants that have issues going in and out of aircraft. That rate is going from 130 to 139 dollars per month. Landing fees, last year we increased landing fees based on CPI. This year we are doing the same. So the rate is going from $1.39 to $1.44. That's only for aircraft that weigh over 12,500 pounds. There was a fee for lighter than air. If you've seen the blimps, they take some coordination with our staff to park on the field. And when we implemented this fee, because it didn't used to exist, was 6 years ago in 2012, and we implemented it at $100. And we are also incrementing it by CPI. 6 years of CPI is 13%, so we're putting it up at $113. The land rate, we have a policy that we get a 10% rate of return on the land that we have at the airports. We have a public works conduct an appraisal, and this year the appraisal came at $13.50 per square foot per year, and we are basically going, the non-aviation rate is going from $1.30 to $1.35. The aviation rate, since they can only be used for aviation, that rate is about 35% lower than a regular rate, going rate. So it's going from 84 cents to about 87 cents. And the ramp also gets derived from those rates, and it's going from 0.0768 cents per month to 0.0794 per month. Now, we were asked also to look at aviation activity permits and how we derive with that formula. Well, that formula for aviation is derived on cost recovery. So we looked at the formula. We looked at how much time it takes on staff to issue a permit and to monitor the activities of a permittee. So the daily fee is actually going down from $255 to $199. The consecutive day fee, so if you pay the daily and then any consecutive day, right now you pay $39. That fee is going down to $35. And the annual permit fee that allows you to work as a mobile mechanic at the airport is going from $2,100 to about $1,879 this year. So that is a decrease. Taxi shuttle services at Oxnard Airport, we still are basing this on staff costs. So the annual permit is going from $1,292 to $1,466, and the courtesy vehicle, that's basically if you have a hotel that comes to the airport, that fee is going from $134 to $149 a year.
Could you tell me your definition of consecutive day? What's that mean?
Consecutive day means if you're coming into the airport and you want to be a mobile mechanic for a day, you can give us the $255 that day. Any consecutive day, you're paying $39 per day.
So that's the second day of the daily fee.
Exactly.
Right.
And it has to be consecutive. Yes, sir.
What about weekends? What if the guy comes in, pays his first day on Thursday, comes in Friday and Saturday and Sunday, or if his business is closed, does he get Monday at the lower rate?
So anytime that there's a day lapse, he will get the daily fee. So if he comes in today, so let's say it's a Thursday, but he tells us that he wants to work on Saturday and Sunday, then he will get the daily plus the consecutive day. But he cannot get a a lapse on that fee.
You would pay, just plain, so I get it, all right. If I come in on Thursday and I've got a 3-day job, but the job, I'm not going to be able to work it on Saturday and Sunday. If I skip Saturday and Sunday, when I come in on Monday, I'm going to pay $255. So I'd be smart to pay the $39 for the other Saturday and Sunday and then show up.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good point.
And then we have other costs of staff that will be adjusted per cost recovery, and that those are those are the fees basically that we are changing this year, and we're open to any questions.
Any questions on the Oxnard side?
The agricultural field on the other side of Ventura Road, is there any income coming in that to the airport authority?
There's not at the moment. There used to be a well that used to come from the church south of 5th Street. I forgot the name, but the well is not what I believe is that the well has been closed because there was litigation over it. So there's not water that provides irrigation services to that field.
That was on 5th and Hobson Way.
Correct.
Is there any cost for that field to the airport authority?
The cost of mowing the lawn and maintaining it, that's a cost that we have right now. We do get transients that sometimes go into the field, so we're looking at potentially fencing it, but that's not something that we're looking to do this year.
We had a boat that was dumped there one time.
Correct.
Yeah, I have a couple questions on the Camarillo side. Ms. Cravens.
I don't have questions, but I do have a couple of things that when they were edited,
Okay.
they need some corrections. And so I'm not looking at the red line version, I'm looking at the real version on page 4, under E, county-owned hangars, number 1. The rent for the county-owned hangars, I think we need to delete is, built prior to 2019 is based. And in the second sentence, the same thing, the rent for county-owned hangars, delete the is, built after 2019 is based.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what page number is that? You have the page number?
Page 4 of the real,
Look at 6B44.
well, if you're dealing with the red line, yeah, but if you're
No,
looking
this
at
is.
the real thing.
No, I got the real thing. It's just I have a subscript. It's page 4 in type, in handwritten, 6B44.
Yeah. So that one paragraph, you need to delete 2 is's and make them isn't. No, that's wrong. Well, we have 2 is's in the same sentence twice. Okay, next one.
Okay.
Page 6, 2 pages later, C. I think this one just, some words were left out as it was, but it says government aircraft, and I think that should be that are based at or use airports in excess of any 90-day period. Because if you go up to where it starts with a colon, you got to have something down here other than that. Yeah. So those words need to be inserted to make it make sense. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly?
The question I had, first of all, I do want to thank the staff for looking at the permits and actually lowering fees in certain needed areas. I think that's very important to make sure that we're market-based. The one thing I do want to ask was just a clarification part on other hourly rates. Those seem to go up by hour. That's on 6B17 at a larger rate. And I just wanted the public to understand why those rates go up. Or I can make my assumptions, but I thought staff would be better to explain.
Well, these are based on cost recovery. I think Jamal can probably help me a little bit better. Do you feel comfortable answering, Jamal?
Can you use your mic?
Jamal Ghazali, I'm the accounting manager. The reason for the increases takes into account increases in the salary Jorge brought up earlier. The biggest piece is the Worker comp, I'm sorry. And we've also had increases in cost of living, and our insurance rates have gone up. Also, we add the increases to salaries. We average out depending on who's going to be getting a salary. So all of that is taken into account.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Sean.
Jorge, I had a question, and I want to echo something Kelly said, that you don't see the price of anything going down nowadays, so where we can decrease the price is something that's much appreciated. But I'm just curious, why is the price going down? Are we changing a process here, or were we overbuilding and not fully?
No, so the cost that was provided before, where you see deviation permits at 255.39 and 21.27, is the cost that it takes an operations officer, a supervisor, to issue the permit, and how long it would take an operations officer to actually monitor the permit every day or throughout the year. So what we looked is we looked at the formula that was used before by the previous director, and we actually sat down with staff, and we got a realistic number as to how much it would actually take to monitor all those activities, and it was actually reduced, and the number of hours were reduced, and that's why we ended up with lower fees.
So you revised the formula didn't
Didn't really address that.
didn't properly depict what was reality.
Exactly.
Then.
Which is a good point.
Yeah.
I've got a question on the main section at 30, page 30. So if you look on the typewritten page 33, which is handwritten 6B36, under the definitions.
Yes.
So authors, and it has to do with all of the negotiations that have been going on with private versus county hangars and lease. The definition for a lease or a sublease, when you look at that, and then you look at number 2, which is the definition of a license, it almost, after I read it about 3 times, the lease or sublease seems to relate a lot closer to private hangars on county land. And number 2, the license is already defined as county hangars, storage, and ground use. Yet all of the discussions we have on renting hangars, they're all called leases.
So the terminology.
So the terminology is not, I'm having a problem, and there's significant differences between a lease, sublease, as far as how many years are allowed on it versus the license, which is a 1 year versus a 5 year. So I think that we're voting to approve this, and it's almost setting it up like it's going to set in concrete the stuff that we're going to have to be negotiating as part of what we're doing with the general hangar leasing and stuff.
I would
echo
that to state that when we do revise any of the lease agreements, dang it, when we do revise any of the lease agreements, that we will need to be looking at the language in the bylaws, the language in the fee schedule. That will be something that we need to get done. Because it's a ripple effect.
Right.
You fix one thing and you've got to look at all your documentation afterwards.
So I'd say the clarification, right, the terminology is in.
What I can tell you is that I believe that, and I don't know exactly when this changed, but I believe when the tenants originally signed up for hangars, they were considered license agreements. But then I believe California law changed, and I was told by county council that anything that has some sort of a structure would be considered a lease. And for example, tie downs, they're still considered, since there's nothing around it, they're still considered license agreements.
Okay, so but I look at your county paper, and the paper says, under license, aircraft tie-downs, storage, portable hangars.
Got it.
Sort of like what we're talking about.
Okay.
So anyway, I think that those two areas need to get cleaned up before you can do any additional negotiating.
Good point.
So
Okay.
I do have, before we put this up for a motion, I have one speaker card, Scott Bear. And please direct your comments to me and not the board until we release it, okay?
I appreciate that. I apologize for if I breached protocol earlier. On the aviation activity permits, I'm curious, Mr. Chair, what the formula is to come up with $199 a day as the cost for processing and monitoring those permits.
Then Rubio.
Now, those are the fees that you're charging mechanics who are not permanently based and pay a annual fee. Is that correct?
Correct. I don't have that formula with me right now, but I will be happy to provide it to Mr. Barrer.
The only reason I asked the question is that it seems to me, and it's great that it went down, don't get me wrong, but it seems to me that $200 a day, $199 a day is a lot of money to process a permit and to occasionally check in on the person who's doing the work. I suspect, and I could be wrong, that the people who are assigned that task don't make $200 a day fully loaded with benefits, or for the 2 or 3 hours that it's going to take to do that work, that it costs $200 a day fully loaded with benefits. So I'm curious what the formula is.
Now, the formula versus the logic behind it is not necessarily the same. What I have been told, and the staff can correct me, is that's the fee to equalize between the people who have to pay an annual rate for the hangar, for the FBO. Say you're a mechanic working the FBO. You are paying X amount of infrastructure fee to work on the airport. That's part of the deal, cost per rent. A mobile mechanic is not paying that, and therefore most of the, if he were not paying a fee, it would all be profit, and he'd be at a significant advantage over someone who had to have a building.
I understand that, but let's say 250 work days a year. You do the math, and the daily permit is far exceeds what the yearly permit would cost.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious how all those numbers are arrived at.
But that employee makes more than $200 a day, right?
But do they
With benefits at all?
they spend their whole day on this, or is it an hour or two to process and an occasional check-in with the work that's being done? That's exactly that's the basis for my question.
Rubio.
Do you mind? So it has to do with the time that it actually takes to gather all of the information, because an activity permit is not just you walking into the office, it's understanding what you do, making sure that you get the proper insurance, making sure that we know what you will be doing, and putting everything together. In some instances, we may need to check with county council. In some instances, we may need to check with risk management. So it takes a little longer to issue a permit than to monitor it every other day, and that's why the cost is initially a little bit higher.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
I would just ask that we follow up and make sure we go through that so that people are understanding what the formulation is.
Sure.
So we
So if we can add that to one of the director reports as a follow-up meeting. Okay, thanks.
Will do.
So we need a motion.
Okay, so do I have a motion on the item 6B from Camarillo?
Well, the recommendations are two. One, to authorize the county executive officer and the director of airports to execute certain leases and licenses as described in this section, and the other one is to adopt the resolution establishing rents and fees and insurance and stuff.
So 1, 2,
there are
3.
two motions. Can we combine them?
I think we can win.
Can we motion to approve staff recommendations with the modifications that Board Member Craven has added?
Yes.
I'd motion that. Thank you.
And I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Camarillo passes.
Oxnard? Good. Approval of motion? Doctor, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That we got approved. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one thing is Mr. Fossil cannot second because he's the
Okay,
alternate.
then I'll second it. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, we got Perello and Zaragoza.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7 is director reports.
Well, I'm glad to be here. And I don't have a direct report for myself tonight after being here 3 days, but Jorge, if you've got anything, feel free.
Yes. Well, we're obviously excited to have a new director of airports, and I've learned a lot over the last 3 days. So thank you for that, Kip. One of the things that we are doing, if you look at your letters and later on, there's a potential issue coming up with one of our commercial tenants, APL, may go to litigation, may not, but since these boards don't like to hear surprises, I'm letting you know that that may be the case, and just to be alert.
So could you give us just a little hint about what the issues are? I don't need you to go into the legal part of it, but over a broad picture.
Sure. So there's a disagreement on what the premises are for Mr. Alves. We believe that he may, well, I mean, let me just put it this way. We think that we have a taxiway object-free area, and that's a pub.
Mr. Chair, can I intervene? If this is in litigation, I don't,
It's not in litigation yet.
It's not, a
Yeah,
potential.
but potential.
And I don't need to,
We need to be
is it
careful.
property? I'm just trying to get a feel for which area of the airport we're dealing with.
Yeah, because potentially if we, I think we need.
Thank you, Supervisor. Taxiway Golf 1, northeast end of the airport. That's basically it.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting with Mr. Alves Friday, so it might be better for us to report after I have a meeting.
Okay,
I
that's
agree,
fine.
I agree, because then, even though we're not in litigation, it could be a potential. So I think it's important that.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I understand, Mr. Sullivan, that you'd like to talk, but really, this is not an agenda item.
Exactly.
This is a report from the director. If they're going to be coming back with a report on what's going to happen, I would prefer that maybe you talk to staff and does that make sense? I'm not trying to shut you down, but I don't know that there's a lot of value in discussing this particular thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been providing legal counsel to Mr. Ailes. He's actually on going to speak with Mr. Turner tomorrow.
Okay.
On these issues.
All right. That's fine.
And there'll be a follow-up from that.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be resolved.
Thank you.
Move to receive and file.
Okay,
And,
Thank you.
question?
Okay, and item 8 is reports.
Nothing unless you have any questions.
For Oxnard, I do have a question for Oxnard, even though I'm Camarillo, but there's a whole bunch, there's 8 or 9
Concerns?
citations issued at Oxnard for this past month. What?
Noise. I know we had one anyway, we can.
No, it wasn't a noise report, it was a citation.
Oh, really?
Do you know?
Well, sir, can you share? Here we go.
So the main thing was the buses that are parked over there were parking in the employee parking lot, and without being issued a Oxnard parking permit, they were parking in the employee parking lot and not moving. So my guys would go out and give them citations. So
Okay, that's what.
Were you able to get to them so that they know why they're getting them?
yeah, I was in contact with the gentleman that manages that area, and I've told them that they can't park there. You can park in the paid lot for 4
And that was
hours.
corrected?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good point. No, okay. No comments from our part.
For correspondence then, do I hear a motion for
Move to receive and file.
receive and file?
Second.
Thank you. Miscellaneous handouts, none. Information, Any, I don't hear any authority comments from Camarillo.
Dr. Fossil?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dr. Fossil.
I have, I don't know whether you'd call it a comment, but sort of a challenge to the new director and the new team. I've been sitting on this board for a long time, and I think that there are a lot of lost opportunities that wasn't focused on from my perspective, particularly at Oxnard. Hangars. You just made a comment about, we have outdated hangars over there. Doesn't seem like we're interested in doing anything about it. The only one that we did anything about it burned down. And that's the only reason we got a new hangar over there. So we look at these 80-year-old hangars, and there's just no opportunity. And most of the building of hangars appear to be at Camarillo. I don't begrudge that at all, but I think there's opportunity for hangars at Oxnard. There are 55 privately owned hangars and about 50 or 60 from the county, and a lot of those are in disrepair. They're rotting out. And, the airline situation, I know that Jorge has worked hard on that. But, we're probably the largest county in the state that doesn't have an airline service. And Oxnard, if you drive up and down the freeway, you'll notice that they're just building and building, and we're expanding over there. And we do need an airline service to this area. So I'd like to see more effort into putting an airline into Oxnard. I just think that we need to think differently about it and work a little harder on it. So without saying we've been Camarillo-centric for the last 10 years, I want to say that we should try to work harder on the lost opportunities that's at Oxnard, because I think there is a lot of opportunity for Oxnard to be self-sustaining and actually grow. So those are some challenges, I think, and this is the appropriate time for this, is because you're new, and I'd like for you to look at both airports with a different vision, because I think the way we've looked at it in the past has not been appropriate. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Perella?
General Manager, I'm an Oxnard councilman. I'm not an airplane person, but I'd like to defer to the two individuals on my right that are airplane people, and I think that Dr. Fussel's comments are well received. I'd like to back him 100%. Not disrespecting Camarillo at all, but we want an equal shake. And it's a pleasure to hear your accent. I couldn't get away with it. I really.
And I just again, welcome. I think it's important, Mr. Turner, that you heard Walt has a lot of concerns. Dr. Fossil and Bert Perella, or a council member. But I just want to welcome you and thank you. And I think we're in good shape, but I think you're going to help us with your experience, and I want to welcome you again. But I want to ask Jorge one more a question that Al Velasquez called the other day, and apparently there was a plane that was coming from Victoria, zooming down towards Ventura Road and over the houses. Did we satisfy Al Velasquez?
We did. So that call came in yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and Mr. Velasquez called the police department. He was provided the tower number, and the tower, believe it or not, they work, so they don't really like to be on the phone for too long. So there was a little disagreement, but in the end, we were able to find out who the pilot was and who the plane belonged to, and we're able to talk to the owners, and I called Mr. Velasquez back, and he was satisfied with the response, so that's where we left it, and Mr. Velasquez was provided with our
With the right number, phone number.
complaint number,
Yeah,
correct.
but, Mr. Turner, what happened, they were talking to the tower, and the tower, of course, they're busy taking care of the wrong number. But anyway, thank you so much for that. Thank you.
And from the Camarillo side, we also welcome you, looking forward to working with you. And believe it or not, we actually are a joint authority, and we believe from Camarillo's side that a healthy Oxnard helps us. So it's a two-way street. Sometimes it's not easy working out into the population with the two airports, but I think that this board has a single vision. And just reminding everybody, the air show is 17, 18 August, and we've pretty much got all of our acts under contract, so that we're moving forward.
And to the speakers, following protocol, nothing against you. No, absolutely. Thank you for participating.
Let's adjourn the meeting, please.
Thank you.